ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमोत्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युतावत् पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. We will commence the Friday Atma Vichara session by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. As we do, we read Bhagavan's Upadesham from the book Ramana Answers, Self-Inquiry 1900 to 1950, a compilation of all the answers given by Bhagavan on the subject of Atma Vichara, self-inquiry, between 1900 to 1950 by our founder, President Sri A.R. Natarajanji. And we have been last few weeks looking for months, I guess, looking from the answers from the segment of 1936 to 1950, the answers given on Atma Vichara. We will contemplate on this week's question and answer and then have a 20-minute Atma Vichara session, practice of Atma Vichara. And then we will be having our President Sharda Akka talking about Atma Vichara as it has been contemplated by Ganapati Muni in Ramana Gita. And then we will have the concluding prayers to Bhagavan. In the last 2-3 weeks that we were looking at this very important question which the devotee had asked, how is one to destroy the ego? And we saw how Bhagavan emphasized that trying to bury the ego is like trying to bury the shadow, because whatever we bury it upon, the shadow will appear on top of that. It's the same way, whatever ideas and concepts that we use, thinking that we will bury or destroy the ego, that will become the new identity or the new avatar. We looked at that. And then Bhagavan continued to explain that, all this is nothing but bubbles, and the reason it is just the ocean. So we looked at that though there are so many egos, it's all nothing but the self. It is all nothing but that pure being consciousness only. And Bhagavan then asks, to destroy the ego, one should focus on the reality, not on the ego. That means all the names and forms Like he said that when it is told that don't think of the monkey while taking the medicine, why you will invariably think of it. Like that, instead of holding on to the names, to the being consciousness, the reality, which is always there, no matter what is the experience that we are having, instead of attending to that, we attend to the names and forms or the thoughts and everything. So Bhagavan was saying that all we need to do is continuously attend to the reality and trace by tracing, even if we attend to a name or form or a thought, we should simply immediately track it back to its source. And by repeatedly doing it, that is the real practice of attending to the truth. Even if our mind, due to habit, runs to think of the monkey than think of the medicine. So he says that to whom is this thought? You inquire and get back to the medicine, is the way he says. Then Bhagavan finally made it very clear reality is simply the loss of the ego. And we looked at the example wherein the space within the pot and the space outside the pot is just the space. It is just the space within the pot, thinking that it is within the pot and therefore has a different identity compared to the space outside, was going on, holding on to that identity. All that had to be done was that identity to be dropped, then the space is the space itself. So it was the space itself holding that identity due to the adjunct of the pot. So it is the same way, it is the same being consciousness which is now holding on to an individual identity because of this body idea, or seeing that it is now expressing more within this body, therefore this body is its limitation, and therefore it doesn't see that it is that it is only a being consciousness. So that idea, if it is vanishes, that it's lost, then the reality, which is the fullness, where there is no boundaries, will shine automatically, is what we were told. And Bhagavan said that no sadhana is therefore necessary. All that is required is to let go this limitation and or this identity. So with this week, we will look at the next question, wherein the devotee says, did not Mr. Brunton find you in London? Was it only a dream? The question is, did not Mr. Brunton find you in London? Was it only a dream? Bhagavan, yes, he had the vision. He saw me in his mind. Very important, and I wondered why Appa A.R. Natarajanji had just put this small question and answer here right after that. How is one to destroy the ego? So it is very clear, this ego that we are thinking is all nothing but a vision. It is only an imagination, but we don't see it. That imagination, it's like the space which has thought that it has limited itself within the pot. It is the same way that in our mind, this ego is only a vision. It's only an imagination. And on top of it, it is the I. And that ego then imagines a lot more. That becomes mine. And the attention goes away from the I to the mind, and the entire thing, whole attention from morning till evening, if you see what happens to us, it is all trying to deal with mind, not even with I. It is all outward turn, trying to deal with all the objects which are of mind. And that makes, unless we realize that this I and mine, all of it is only an imagination in the mind, and as long as I am holding on to this idea of I and mine, then I am like the space which appears to be trapped inside the pot. And as long as that idea is firmly held, then the effort to escape from that limitation of the pot will be on, and the struggle will be completely on. It will be going on and on and on. No matter what methodology we try to go out of the pot, because we are so strongly thinking that we are the pot. I want to become one with the space outside, let us say. And that identity that I am the space within the pot, so strongly being in there, it is impossible with that idea, with that concept firmly being there. It is so impossible, it appears so impossible by the very virtue of that idea to become one with the space outside, because that is creating the continuous boundary, no matter what is being done, what is being known. Because that I am within this pot idea is a continuous boundary held, and that very boundary creates the difference. It always continues to sustain the difference of a space outside and a space inside. And with that very virtue, whatever is being done, whatever is being known, whatever is being put conceptually understood, it always remains, because it is done, known by the same idea of that limitation that I am within this pot. So until one sees that this entire thing is an idea or a concept in my mind, and then by entertaining that, then this belief and his efforts is all going to be there until that is realized by the grace of the Sadguru. And when it ceases to exist, it's not an intellectual understanding, but it's something which is naturally there. The space actually has no identification, no boundaries. But when the same space is seen with an object, it appears to have a boundary. So the self has no limitation. It's a pure expanse of consciousness, or just pure consciousness, pure self, pure being consciousness alone. But it entertaining an idea, a vision, so to say, here it is in the mind that it is limited to this name and form, it becomes limited. So, moment it recognizes that by the very virtue of its sustenance of this limitation, it's all its efforts, it's all its troubles are starting by the very virtue of that limitation. And all it needs to do is simply not hold on to it anymore. And therefore, there is no need to gain liberation or anything. It is ever liberated as a pure being consciousness by the very virtue of holding on to this, that it is having a limitation. Therefore, it starts to attend itself, which Bhagavan says here is turn every time a limitation rises in the form of a thought to see to whom is this. It is for me, and therefore, who am I? And turn to that being consciousness which one is, and see in that being consciousness that there is absolutely no limitation, no struggle. It is ever shining, the light of the sun, in which if we bring the limitation appears real. If I bring a thought, the thought appears to be real. When we see it that way, and by repeatedly coming back to the truth and realizing that any limitation I hold in front of it becomes my new struggle. When that realization happens, and when we strive to remain in that state of our own self, which is the being consciousness, without any adjunct, without holding on to any limitation, without any limitation to achieve something or not achieve something, because all of that is again holding on to this idea of I am the body. When we remain in the pure being, as Bhagavan says, Summa Iru, then we recognize that actually the mukti alone was, the self alone was, and the very idea of putting a limitation was all imaginary and it was all in the mind. And if I entertain this imagination, the trouble starts immediately. And when that recognition happens, and when as Bhagavan says, the cow starts to see the joy of the same grass within its stable, it stops to wander outside, it stops to get beaten outside, and starts to enjoy the green grass which is verily available at the place it was, and simply starts to relish it. So that this is the path given to us by Bhagavan. He makes us the outward turned mind slowly and slowly through the act of inquiry, recognize that the undivided self is our real nature, and the sadhaka that we are when we were in the path is this virtue is the source of all division. And when we turn from that, from the sadhaka, back to the source of the sadhaka, who am I? And become the self, we realize that the self was ever established. And by repeatedly doing so, Bhagavan brings greater and greater clarity in relinquishing all division causing thoughts and to remain in the silence of the self. The immense grace of Bhagavan with which we have come to this most direct path. For the next 20 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. In Atma Vichara, no matter how many thoughts rise, whatever may be the quality of the thought, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, it is all caused by the division. To whom? To the I, to the I. And that is the first division, says Bhagavan. And when we inquire, who am I? And trace the source of that I thought, and we see ourselves to be that being consciousness, to be that self where there is absolutely no thoughts, no divisions. And by repeatedly getting back to the self, Bhagavan assures the mind will gain enough strength to remain at the source itself. The immense grace of Bhagavan, for the next 20 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय। Over to Shardaka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on self-inquiry through Bhagavan's question and answers, compiled by Sri R. Natarajan, and in the second half, compiled by Ganapati Muni and recorded as 18 chapters of Ramana Gita. By Bhagavan's immense grace, this second half follows the practice of self-inquiry, which is, of course, the most important part not only of the satsang, but of our day and our lives, to be able to practice self-inquiry. This Bhagavan has already told us, indicated in the third chapter of Ramana Gita, where he says self-abidance is the paramount duty, mukhya kartavyam. And then we went on to the fourth chapter, where Bhagavan explained that certain concepts are not self-inquiry. We went through those concepts and the practice of Aham Brahmasmiti Vritti Kim Jnanam Muni Kunjara. So all the I am Brahman, Brahman am I am all these Mahavakyas, Bhagavan says that they are Bhavana Kriti Varnanam. They are only Bhavana Kriti Varnanam, he is saying now with reference to the heart, but there he has said that they are all only concepts. He told us that Vrittayo Bhavana Eva. They are all only concepts, they are all only thoughts. So self-abidance is most important. And how does one abide in the self? How will the mind comprehend the self? Muni asked, and Bhagavan said, when it seeks to contemplate on its own nature, it melts into the self. Then in the fifth chapter, Bhagavan is describing the nature of the spiritual heart. A very important aspect of Bhagavan's teachings is the nature of the spiritual heart, the location of the spiritual heart, the aid, the support given to the sadhana of self-inquiry in terms of the spiritual heart. So Bhagavan is of his own accord speaking in this chapter, and we saw that he said that where all the thoughts nirgacchati yat sarva vrittis vrittayo dehadharinam hridayam tat samakyatam bhavana kriti varnanam. That into which all the thoughts of one who is embodied, one who is identified with the body, dehadharinam. See, this pertains only to one who is embodied or who has an identity, body identity. This Bhagavan is first clarifying. And Bhagavan has said in different places that the location of the spiritual heart is given by him for those who are having the body identity. If one does not have the body identity, where is the question of any location? Vishwanatha Swami would say the self is that circle which has its center everywhere and circumference nowhere. So center is everywhere, if there is everywhere. But there is no everywhere also. There is Hridaya Kuhara Madhye, Bhagavan told us in the very second chapter, Kevalam Brahmamatram. But he went on to say that Kevalam Brahmamatram while one is in the body, becomes manifest as aham spurana. Aham ahamiti sakshat atmarupena bhati. So where does this, if there is a spurana, if there is the experience, the anubhava of a spurana, then where does this experience take place? Obviously, experience has a location, and this location is the spiritual heart, where all the thoughts subside, says Bhagavan. Yet, it is not subject to mental concepts. Bhavana kriti varnanam. Bhagavan says, describing this, saying it's on the right side, all that he himself is going to say in this chapter, when understood by us with the mind, would also be concepts. See, he is not saying, he is not differentiating between the concepts which he is giving as supports for us and the concepts which the scriptures have given us. Vrittayo bhavana eva. He said, aham brahmasmi is a bhavana. Now he is saying, equally, the concept of the spiritual heart is also a bhavana. Bhavana kriti varnanam. I am going to describe it. If I describe it, it becomes a concept. The experience is not a concept, but the description converts it into a concept. Yet, why is Bhagavan giving us this concept as an aid to the sadhana? If we look at it, the very question, who am I? By whom is the question, who am I, asked? The question, who am I, is obviously asked by the limited entity. It is the ego which is putting the question to itself in a way. Who am I? The ego is asking itself, who am I? It is trying to look at itself through that question. So that question is also a concept. But what is the difference between the question, who am I, and other concepts? Say, if we are trying to do japa, or if we are trying to do manonigraha by getting rid of thoughts. Supposing I tell myself, I'm not going to be thinking of anything. I'm going to remain in silence. Or if I tell myself, I will remain with a single thought, only the japa or only the ishta. What happens then? Then there is the I thought and there is the goal to be achieved of controlling the mind. And who controls the mind? Who is the controller over there? It would be the I thought. So there is the bhavana. There is a concept, there is a goal, there is a concept, and there is the one who is pursuing it. What happens when I ask myself, who am I? There also, I am there and I am pursuing inquiry, but only thing is, there is no other object other than the I. There is no second person at all on which the attention is going. So the activity of the I or the power of the I over another object is undermined. It is cut away. So it becomes the best or the most subtle form of thought. If at all we need a support in the form of any thought, the question, who am I, gives us that support. Similarly, Bhagavan gives us a location. This location, the physical location, he gives us of the heart. After telling us that until we have the anubhava, it is a concept. We must recognize it's a concept and use it as a concept that is an aid. Bhavana kriti varnanam, Bhagavan said. Okay. Then he went on to say, Nirgacchati yatoham dhi hridayam tat samasatah. He had said, Nirgachanti yata sarva vrittis vittayo dehadharinam. All the thoughts of one who is embodied, go into the heart. How do they go? They go, aham vritti samastanam vritti nam moola muchyate. All the thoughts are dependent on the I thought. The I thought is the source of all the thoughts. And the source of the I thought is the heart. Therefore, the source of all the thoughts is the heart. They don't directly go, they may go, but even if we think of a thought as going to the heart, we can think of any thought as rising from the heart and subsiding in the heart. We can think of the mantra as rising from the heart, the spiritual heart, and subsiding in the spiritual heart. But when we think thus, the process is for me. Actually, I am watching that thought subside into the heart, and when I watch that thought subside into the heart, I also automatically subsides in that moment. So ultimately, it is a subsidence of the I thought in the heart. The heart is the source of the I thought, says Bhagavan. Then he explains what is in his definition of the spiritual heart, what it is not. He says, Hridayasya yadisthanam bhavet chakramanahatam Mooladharam samarabhya yogasyopakramak kutaha. Don't confuse it with the term anahata, which is used as the heart center in this Shat chakra or the seven chakras, the seventh being Sahasrara. In that description of the chakra sadhana, anahata is the heart center. It is called anahata. So Bhagavan is saying, I am not referring to the anahata because I am telling you this heart center is the source. But anahata is not the source. In the yoga sadhana, mooladhara is the source. So this heart center I am talking to you about is not the anahata chakra. That is only one of the chakras midway between the source mooladhara and the pinnacle Sahasrara. So this is not the anahata chakra. That he says by way of a question. How can it be? If it is anahata, mooladhara would not be called the source. So this is not what I am referring to. Then he continues, it is not the mystical chakra position. Then is it the physical organ? No. Anya devata rakta pinda dhridayamuchyate. It is not the blood pumping organ, the heart, the physical heart which is on the left. It is not that heart. Ayam hriditi vritya tadatmano rupamiritam. This heart, it says, this is the center. I am ready. This is the center. It declares itself. It reveals itself as the center. Therefore, it is the form of the Atman itself. It is the mystical form of the Atman itself. Tasya dakshinato dhama. Its space is on the right. Kritpite, this is the seat of the heart. Naiva vamatah, not on the left. Tasmat pravahati jyotis sahasraram shushumnaya. The energy of the self through a mystical channel called the Sushumna Nadi spreads from the heart to the brain center, which is Sahasrara. And from Sahasrara, Sarvam Deham Sahasrarat Tada Lokanubhutaya. From Sahasrara, the consciousness spreads throughout the body, and when this happens, one perceives a world. Lokanubhutaya. And having seen the world, tah prapanshyan vibhedena samsari manujo bhavet. Seeing the world, seeing it as apart from oneself, one becomes a samsari. One becomes attached to the world by seeing it apart. So the process which Bhagavan is explaining is from the heart, the consciousness goes to the Sahasrara. From the Sahasrara, it spreads throughout the body. When it spreads throughout the body, the world is seen. The moment the world is seen, one begins to perceive duality and one becomes worldly, one becomes attached to samsara. So, what does Bhagavan ask us to do in self inquiry? He reverses the process. From the world, he takes it to the I thought, the Sahasrara, the mind center. Physically, one may say here, and then what happens? The whole world is actually taken back. See, the energy which spreads throughout the body and into the world in the form of thoughts is withdrawn from thoughts by asking for whom are these thoughts. The answer comes, it is for me. When I say it is for me, instead of thinking of the world, I have come to my own body identification. So, from the world, the attention or the energy has been drawn back to the body. Then, when I ask, who am I? What happens is, this body identity, which has started from the Sahasrara, gets back into the heart through the question, who am I? The reverse process happens. Every time when the attention goes out, I become a samsari, says Bhagavan, by paying attention to the world. So the Bhagavan says, don't pay attention to the world. How does the world arise? In our consciousness, it arises in the form of a thought. Each and every thought is world. So whenever world appears, question it, take it back, do the reverse process and re-enter the heart. That's what Bhagavan says. By explaining to us how it comes out, he is also explaining to us the beauty of how he is taking it back within to the source. So it's coming out. So you retrace its steps, you get it back, take it back. And to take it back, you have to make it want to get to that source. You have to make it thirsty for that source by questioning it. When you question it, it gets shaky and then it turns back into the source, says Bhagavan. It gets thirsty for the source. There is an example which is given in a movie of how a monkey is traced in the African desert to the water source, secret water source which it knows. So it is made to eat some salt. It is given something very salty to eat. And when it eats salt, it has to immediately drink water. So it runs to its water source, and the Aboriginal people are very agile. They're as fast as the monkey. And they follow the monkey back and it leads them to the secret water source. So, similarly, one has to make this I thought thirsty for its source. So, how does one become thirsty for the source? Normally, we are very satisfied. But if that question is asked, for whom are these thoughts? Who am I? Then it becomes thirsty for its source because it is reminded about the source and it becomes thirsty for the source and it will move back to the source. And if we keep the attention on it as it moves back to the source, it will get back to the heart, which Bhagavan has told us in the earlier verse is the place from which it has arisen in the first place. So it will get back to the heart source. This is what Bhagavan is asking us to do in self-inquiry, to just ask who am I and watch what happens. Watch what happens. What will happen is that I will dissolve into its source. So if we remain alert, then that Atmanubhava will prevail by the grace of Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Thank you, Akka.
Namo Ramana.
Apara Satchit Sukhavarirashi Yasyormimatram Bhuvanam Samastam Guhahitam Tam Ramanam Gabhiram Chintavihinam Hridi Chintayami Chintavihinam Hridi Chintayami. Namo Ramana. Thank you all.
Namo Ramana. Thank you, Dilip.